Be shortly after 6:30, we'll call the meeting to order. Please, would everybody please rise to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kennedy?
Here.
Ms. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Dakota?
Here.
Ms. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Here.
Mr. Hoey?
Here.
6 present, 1 absent.
The first item on the agenda are the minutes for approval. We have the approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled Lowell School Committee meeting of Wednesday, January 18th, 2017. Chair will entertain a motion to accept and place on file by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Hoey. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed. Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you don't mind, I would request that we take item 7 to the Lowell High School Facilities Subcommittee report out of order.
Okay. If there's no objection, then we'll do that by general consent. Okay, hearing no objection, we'll take that out of order. So that's item 7.2?
Yes.
Okay. So the Joint Facilities and Lowell High School Subcommittee meeting, Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last Tuesday, January 24th, the Facilities and Lowell High School subcommittees met jointly to review Lowell High School's educational plan for the new Lowell High School project. The entire school committee was present, along with Councilors Leahy, Leary, and Samaras, as well as the entire leadership team of the Lowell Public Schools and the leadership team of the high school. The main agenda item was the educational plan, and at this time, rather than read these minutes word for word, I'd like to turn it over to the head of school to give us a brief presentation.
What kind of presentation, Mr. Gignac?
Brief.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay? Oh, there it goes. Somebody had been back. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Gignac. I'd like to repeat what I mentioned at the subcommittee last week, that on behalf of the school and the students, faculty, and Lowell High School community, we want to thank the school committee. Some were members prior when they made the decision to support the high school. There's obviously always a challenge to making a decision on which school gets the priority, and we're thrilled that Lowell High School was chosen. And also thank the city council and city manager for supporting that. This is a big deal, the largest project in the history of the city. This involves everything, wastewater plants and arenas and all of that. It's also the largest project in the history of the Mass School Building Assistance Bureau. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and show that the visioning sessions that were conducted about our school education plan are serious, and we believe will fulfill what we think will an opportunity for our kids to have a 21st century education. I also want to mention that the plan is online through the city, through the mayor's office, city manager's office, so if folks want to read the plan, they're welcome to it, and that the plan is a preliminary plan, that there will be moving parts to this as the project goes forward with the design. Nothing is perfect, but this is the beginning phase of a preferred plan. The educational leadership team was made up of the superintendent's office with Robin Desmond, Mr. Frisch. We also had Janine Durkin. We had Casey Nelson for technology, Rick Underwood for facilities, and the high school had Amy McLeod, Roxanne Howe, and the city manager's office was on the educational leadership team, Mike McGovern and Rodney Connolly. This team kind of drove the project at the high school and then created the larger group that was the visioning group that met 3 times and worked with the consultants to come up with the plan. So that's where we are. are. I'll walk you through the plan. Dr. Howe has the clicker, and I'll try to go quickly because everyone, I believe, saw it last week, but we're delighted with the outcome. As you can see, the preliminary design program is what has taken place in the last few months, where the consultants actually are in the building looking at the existing conditions, and then worked with the visioning team to come up with what are the space needs, what are the priorities, and they made preferences on what they would like to do. This will all be refined in the next couple of months through the architects and through the next phase of the project. The next slide. These were the general visioning goals and the priorities for the project. I'm not going to read them all, but to me, the most important one is the first one. You want a joyful environment. You want a place where kids want to come and have fun and learn and be part of a place that's special. And obviously, you want it to be safe. And I think as you look at all of the other priorities that were set, this is really the beginning phase of what we think are important for the educational visioning for the high school. The next slide were some of the design objectives. Again, the secure and welcoming. Security is a major issue. It's our top priority at the school, that everyone is safe and secure every day. And then some of the other aspects of the visioning that came out that we thought were critical to the next 50 years of Lowell High School. We are a community school where people can see what our kids do every day. If you walk by the high school right now, you can't see the great restaurant that the kids run. You can't see that they work in the bank, the Jeanne d'Arc Credit Union. We have a school store. No one can really find an office, a house office. So some of these priorities we think are important for the next 50 years. So you become a school, but you're a community school, that people can see it and feel it and walk in and not feel like they're intruding on an educational space. We feel that there's a real gap in the social hub or heart of a school. If you were to go to the new site at the university at the top of Merrimack Street, it's a welcoming kind of a place where everyone congregates, and that becomes the heart of the school. We really feel that's missing in the high school. And then all the other issues connected with how the freshman academy would cluster into the school, how the STEM programs would be co-mingled so that they're all together, and then the humanities would have their own clusters, and then everything would be flexible. I think as you see at the end of this presentation that we've actually reduced the number of classrooms with an increase in enrollment. And that's because the rooms will be flexible and staff won't own their rooms anymore. There'll be a requirement of the MSBA is to have 85% capacity of your classrooms. Right now, we're in the low 70s, so I think that's an important piece of keeping your square footage down to keep the cost down on the project. Some of the other items I think you'll see there are important. Teacher meeting place, display and exhibition for students' work, outdoor space, and a connection to the history of the city. The next couple of slides, Amy will speak on the educational program. Amy?
Thank you. So as the next slide shows, we'll quickly just define what the educational program is for those who don't know. So we were tasked with essentially working with the leadership at the high school and with our teachers, our lead teachers, our teachers in focus groups, and then all the visioning to bring together all of the documentation that we found so that we could have the opportunity to create the educational program or plan, which captures what our current policies and practices are, and then it also gave us an opportunity to define any objectives for changing future programming. So the plan that you see and that you have actually captures both of those things. And it was a really, it was a big task, but it was an exciting task because it really made us look at, similar to what we did in the NEASC process, is to reflect on where we are and where we want to be and really what are our educational goals. And so that narrative document, which is about a 40-page document, as Brian said, it is on the website. It will support the space summary that the architects are working on. And how they create that space summary is to look at the programming piece. So as we were looking at the educational program, they're looking at the actual programming piece. So they're looking at the master schedules, they're looking at projected enrollments, they're looking at our class sizes, and they're tabulating and counting all that and putting it into a format that then the educational program supports. So those two pieces come together, and then that's where we are now with the space summary. So quickly, if we go to the educational program, this next slide starts to outline some of the issues that are in the document itself. I don't want to go through everything, we don't have all night, but I do want to point out some highlights that I think are important for everybody to know. When we start talking about the grade and school configuration, we're really keeping with the same, a similar model to what we have. The big change in the grade and the school configuration that we looked at is the importance of having the connection of the freshman academy to our building. We're not proposing that we change the structure of the freshman academy. However, we do feel that it is important that the freshman academy is a wing or an area closely physically connected to the main building. We feel that that creates less of a safety issue in several ways. Right now we have students who are crossing streets during the day, and then also we have our safety officers who are scattered between, safety and security scattered between two buildings. And so if you have to back one another up, or if someone is absent and they need to be over in that building, it just really creates a challenge. So for safety and security alone, we think that's important. But the other piece is, and I was talking to some students this week, and they were really talking about the idea of the identity of the freshman academy is fantastic, but it would kind of take away that sense of, I'm going to the big building. If they had their own wing within our building, it would sort of create that connectedness to the main building. The class size policy, we talked about that extensively last week. Essentially, the district doesn't have an official class size policy, but right now at the high school, our core academic courses average around 24, 25. And so that is the number that the architects were working with when they looked to the build out for the new classrooms. We do have outliers, of course. Some of our ELL classes average around 22. Our physical education classes average slightly higher. And some of our special education courses average quite lower than that because of state regulations. And so I think that points to something important that the architects are struggling with a little bit when they look at Lowell High School. Because we're such a big high school, because we offer more courses than any other high school in Massachusetts, there are going to be outliers. And so this building is going to need to have flexibility. It's going to need to adapt. And it's also going to need to anticipate the changes that we'll see in the educational program and the needs of students over the next 10, 20, 50 years. So we keep using the words flexibility, adaptability. The next piece that I think I want to speak about is just the teaching methodology and structure. There's a lot of details in this document about what specific departments need. Obviously, we need a complete rehaul of our science labs. They're in no condition or shape for teaching and learning in the 21st century and for science instruction in the 21st century. Our classrooms are not flexible. Our classrooms are not adaptable. We have desks that are not mobile. We have classrooms with no windows. We don't have technology in every classroom. And really, it's a challenge for our teachers to work and for our students to be in classrooms all day long where they're not given the tools and the strategies and the physical space that they need to be flexible and to move around classrooms and to collaborate and to work in groups or work in large groups or do the different things that we want to see in an adaptable classroom. And I think if you look at this document closely and you look through all of the different departments and the needs that are listed, you're going to see those common threads that all departments are really asking for in terms of that. One of the big changes that I'll point out is teacher planning. Right now, we really don't have teacher planning space that's connected to classrooms. And so in some of the models that we've looked at, we'd really like to see classrooms that are clustered around humanities or STEM or some of our CTE programs so that there's connectivity and interdisciplinary connections between classrooms. But in connection to that, we'd also like to see smaller teacher prep rooms so that teachers have a space to step out of their classrooms when they're not teaching, where they have a desk, where they have their supplies that they need and their materials so that they can plan and collaborate with teachers around them. And the document talks about if we were to do that and to cluster teachers in an interdisciplinary way, we would hope to support more interdisciplinary teaching and learning, which is what we were tasked to do from the NEASC accreditation process. So we feel that this build out will help us meet one of the large needs that we were tasked with in NEASC. I don't think that there are many changes to talk about in terms of the lunch and breakfast program, except for the fact that we need better space that meets all of our kids and fits all of our kids right now. Right now, we're putting kids into 4 lunches. We would prefer to do that into 3. And we would also like to have a facility where students have the ability to all fit in the lunchroom. Right now, if you come to the high school, you'll see students sitting in the hallway and finding other small places near the lunchroom to sit. And we feel like we need an open, bright, cheerful, welcoming environment where students can be all together and they can be safe and we can monitor that space. I am not an expert in technology, but what I can tell you is the technology section of the document talks about what I refer to in having every classroom outfitted equitably. Right now, we are lucky enough to have some edge classrooms where we have some pretty fantastic technologies. We have interactive whiteboards, or we have short throw projectors and document cameras, and then you go into other classrooms where we have none. And while I think we're using our local budget creatively now to try to fix those inequities, a larger build-out would provide that baseline technology in every single classroom for every single teacher, for every single student. And the superintendent added to our conversation last week and talked about the district goal of getting closer to a one-to-one. So with this build-out, what we would be doing is removing shared labs, or rental labs we call them, and having more flexible technology so that it could be brought into classrooms so teachers would be able to do that without shuffling kids around to different buildings and different classrooms. And I think the last point on this is the visual arts. We are very, very proud of the work that's been happening in our visual arts program, and I think one of the clusters that we'd like to see is not only an update of these graphics design labs and the photography and animation labs, but a connection so that the graphic design could be located closer to the TV station, so that they could be doing some designing for them and working together, again, those cross-collaborative pieces. And on the next page, Brian will continue to talk about some of the other areas in the educational program, and I think those words of flexibility and interdisciplinary connections will keep coming across in the plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Yep.
Yeah. And just to follow up a little bit on that technology piece, one of the aspects of looking at the square footage and trying to keep the building size at a affordable price is the fact that we have, was it 18 computer labs right now? And you won't need those computer labs if all of the classrooms have computers and have the technology. And so there's about 15,000 square feet there that we can program to something else. And it was part of our mission to look at all of those issues along the way. I think that's an important one. We have too many computer labs that aren't used all the time, and I think that space can be better prioritized. And it mostly will be prioritized into the special education space, we believe. The last section I'll go through is just the number of programs and how the visioning process helped us better understand our needs in the performing arts area. And I'm sure School Committeeman Dakota understands this better than anyone, but this is a critical piece of what we offer every day at our school. I mean, there's been a great debate about what goes on at the school and what are the interests in the kids. And quite frankly, we're a different school than we were 25 years ago. There's as many students in the performing arts as there are in athletics. So it's just a complete swap of what people would think from years ago. So these are programs that are critical to where we are as a school right now. We're actually considering adding a new dance instructor because of the demand for dance. The physical education space and athletics was a lot of work to figure out how to manage 9 teaching stations with the amount of space that we have to continue with the programs that we have in physical education and adaptive physical education. We still service our special education students in in physical education, so we've created space for them, and also have looked at the need for flexible space outside of the gymnasium for cheerleading, for yoga, for other activities that really aren't part of what happens in a regular gymnasium. And we also feel strongly that the gymnastics program has a large population of students that are bussed out. There's no place for them to practice, that we've created space that will accommodate more of those programs for more of our kids and save on rentals going outside of the schools. The special education program, we have modified the space in the document because we've met with the superintendent, and there is a number of students coming into the school system that we really need to accommodate, and we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our special education students. So we have increased the special education space in the square footage in the last couple of weeks. All of the vocational and technical programs, again, are critical to what we offer each day as a comprehensive high school. Everyone that walks in the building needs a pathway, needs a program. And so we're not strictly a program school that's that everyone is going to go to college. And we have opportunities for every single student, from life skills students in special education, through culinary arts, through business and retail, and we run a store, and we have an awful lot of programs that we feel are appropriate and need to be programmed into our school for the future. I think everyone is aware of the ROTC program and the benefits that we have. And the fact is, it's over 400 students are in there, and it's a terrific program, and we program space for them. The other pieces are at the end are the transportation policies, because our role is really to look at the big picture of the school, not where it's going to be, and depending on that site decision that's made by the council, transportation could be an issue. So we've made a highlight in our plan that has to be considered if we're not centrally located. It'll be a whole nother story to figure all that out. Functional and spatial relationships have a lot to do with what Amy McLeod talked about, how we square footage in our programs match up with the architects so that our STEM programs are together, our humanities teachers are together, and there's more opportunities for collaboration. And the last piece in security and visual access, again, is a high priority, and we've spent an awful lot of time between Mrs. Durkin and Dr. Howe and our school resource staff to make sure we're looking at all of the needs of security and what happens with different incidents that come at the high school. We've made special reference to that in the plan. And the last piece, and I'm not so sure we need to go into all the square footage, Mr. Mayor, because of time, but just the programs that, if you could back up just one, Dr. Howe, to the other programs. These are the other programs that we run at the school every day. We have an in-house suspension room because we don't send kids out of school, rarely expelled. We have a student activities room with all of the clubs. We have 30 clubs. We need a space for them. We have a school mediation staffer that's funded through Middlesex Community College that works with students on issues. MCC and UMass TRIO programs, Gear Up, Upward Bound, they have space in our school that really do a terrific job with our first generation college students. We have Katie's Closet, small space in our school to provide clothing for a lot of our students in need. We have the Lowell Community Health Center partnership that provides additional support outside of our nurses, and extra counseling services that come in through different grants through our student support service. One of them would be Safe Harbors, which is a grant that we receive to support our kids. So that's a summary of kind of everything that we do for the most part. Again, it is all online. I think if there's just one item I would look at in that next slide, and that is that to show the difference in the number of classrooms. The existing of 3125, and we are using 177 rooms. We're proposing 172 rooms because we would then go to meet the MSBA 85% utilage during the day, and I think that's an important piece of kind of making sure that all the space is used all day long. So with that, if there's any questions, here, and Amy's here, Dr. Howe, Suzanne Keefe, Roger Morno, Jim DeProfio, Tom Thornton. We're on the visioning committee as well with some of the staff.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hey, Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Martin and Mrs. McLeod, for providing that overview of the educational plan. At the subcommittee, we went into much further detail, and I just want to point out that this plan is really a comprehensive document that is going to guide the rest of the project. And I will say, after reviewing this, that I'm confident that regardless of the location in that debate, that the students of the future Lowell High School will have a world-class institution. So I thank you, Mr. Martin, and your team for putting this document together, because I truly am confident that we will be able to provide that to our students. I did want to mention that prior to this meeting, we met with the class officers of Lowell High School who were bringing up some of their concerns of the project, and I'm happy to report that all of their concerns that they were hoping to be included in this plan are in the plan. And that just shows you that every possible avenue was thought of, and on behalf of the committee, I truly appreciate that. So at this time, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that the Lowell School Committee accepts the educational plan as presented.
Okay, and we have a second by, we have a motion on the floor, second by Ms. Doherty. You know, I would just like to say that I thought that was a good summary, and point out that we did get the long version at the joint subcommittee meeting, in which the entire school committee was there, that went on for, I think, 2.5 hours. And so, and that's available online, I think, for anybody that wants to watch the long version. So, and I also think at that joint subcommittee that there were, because it was a joint subcommittee meeting, there's already a majority of the school committee that's on record in favor. So, is there any further discussion on the motion? Roll call.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Thank you. Before we go on with the agenda, I would like to introduce, we have a new member. The member from the Lowell High School student body this evening is Anase Omenyeni. Is that pretty close? Okay, so I just would want to introduce you to the school committee and also to the viewers at home. But did you want to say a few words?
I'm very excited. Sorry. Thank you. This is Lowell High School, the student government's second time being represented on the school committee, and we're very excited about the prospect of being able to act as a liaison between our elected officials and the student body, and being able to represent the interests, beliefs, and needs of the students at Lowell High. And we very much intend to make our voices heard and to hopefully provide insight and discussion that we hope will be of use to the members of the committee. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Welcome.
I'll make that motion.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Next under memorials, we have one memorial for Mary Magoska, the stepmother of Fred Magoska, the assistant principal at the Maury School. Under motions, we have several motions. The first motion is by, do you want to take the,
Our first motion this evening by Mayor Edward Kennedy requests that the superintendent and administration at Lowell High School provide information regarding how many students walk to Lowell High School and how many students participate in athletic events. Seconded by Ms. Doherty. Mayor Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is just looking for information, updated information. I know that there was a survey done, but I'm not sure how old that was or how reliable that information is. But I think going forward, as we have decisions to make regarding a new high school, that it would be useful to have that information. So that's all. It's just looking for information.
Any other questions? Yes.
I just had a comment. I recognize the how important this information is and the weight it will have when making this decision, but I also think, and I would respectfully request of all the members of the school committee to keep in mind that the decision we're going to make with regard to the high school, though in the hands primarily of the city council, a lot of the influence remains with the school committee members. And so I just wanted to say, I think it's important for us to remember that while numbers are very important, it's also it's a representation of our values as a community, and so we have to keep in mind that equity in education should be our first and foremost priority. And we have a responsibility by law to ensure that all students receive an equal education. And so if students are, even if it's not the majority of students, if a third of students are walking to school and they have to make the decision between breakfast and getting to school on time, or between waking up an hour and a half early and losing that amount of sleep, and getting to school on time, we have to keep all of that in mind. And so I know that the downtown location is 1 mile from all of the center points of the neighborhoods. And so I just wanted to reiterate that that despite the results, whatever they may be, it's very important that we keep in mind that the decision that is made with regard to the high school is a representation of our values, and first and foremost should be equity in education and access to education. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Our second motion, also by Mayor Edward Kennedy, requests that the superintendent and administration at Lowell High School provide an update on the proposal to institute a STEM curriculum or STEM academy at Lowell High School. Seconded by Mr. Hoey.
This is, again, just looking for information. I'll just wait for the report.
Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Our third motion for the evening by Mayor Kennedy, request to either postpone or cancel school committee meeting scheduled for April 19th, which falls during April school vacation. Seconded by Mr. Gignac. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is during the vacation. The City Council has canceled their meetings for the February vacation and the April vacation. We do not have a school committee meeting that falls during the February vacation anyways, but I don't know if people want to cancel that April 19th meeting or move it, but certainly there must be people on the school committee that have vacation plans or some kind of plans for that week.
Ms. Doherty.
I don't have a problem with changing it, canceling it, whatever, but I wanted to point out that in other documentation tonight regarding our budget hearings, that there's a budget hearing, I believe, scheduled for that night. That's supposed to be a public session. I think that wouldn't be a great time to present our budget to the public, because we know that although many of our parents and students maybe do not get to go away for April vacation, many more staff might be away as well. So I'm thinking that anything important shouldn't happen that week, whether we meet or not. I'm going to be here, but so I would second the mayor's. I support the idea of either canceling it or making it another week, but not planning, definitely not planning to do a budget hearing that week. That would be my.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. I didn't realize that. But if that's the case, then rather than to cancel a meeting, what I would suggest is that we push it to the following Wednesday, which I believe probably is the 26th.
Yes, Ms. Doherty.
Sorry. There's already a meeting scheduled for the following Wednesday. What I'm hoping we could do, and we can discuss this in more detail when we get to the budget schedule, would be to kind of push it up earlier.
That would be fine with me as well.
Because we've already got a follow-up meeting scheduled for the 26th. So I would say, in support of this motion, we should just cancel the 19th, because we're going to be adding meetings to go through a budget.
Okay, that's a good idea. So if we cancel the meeting and then just schedule a budget meeting at a time that's convenient for everybody, that would probably work.
When we get to that point in the agenda. Perfect. Any other comments? So the motion as it stands is to cancel the meeting scheduled for April 19th. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Our next motion, request, also by Mayor Edward Kennedy, requests that the superintendent provide a report and update on the school department's efforts towards recruitment designed to bring diversity to Lowell High School faculty. Seconded by Mr. Hoey. Mr. Mayor.
Madam Chairman, thank you. This is, again, is just a motion looking for information. All of us will recall that during the budget session, we appropriated $30,000 for recruitment in order to bring about some diversity within the Lowell High School faculty. And so I'm just looking to see if we've made any headway in that regard, and if we haven't, what plans we have to do so.
Any other? Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we could just include in that report the efforts district-wide as well, not just the high school, I think that would be important.
It's fine.
Form of a friendly amendment. Thank you very much. Any other questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Our next motion by Mayor Edward Kennedy requests that the superintendent direct the Lowell High School administration to take advantage of the free tutoring services offered at the Dharma Center on Merrimack Street. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I need a second. Ms. Doherty.
A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to a which is just up in the same building, the curriculum, the high school. And these that are running there are offering free tutoring services for high school students at a very convenient location for free. But the location is very convenient because it's in such close proximity to the high school. And the people that are involved with the Dharma Center are pretty, it's a pretty high-end group. And so I think that they could probably provide high-quality tutoring services, and it's something that we should look into and take advantage, especially if it's being offered. So I just wanted to bring it to the superintendent's attention, and going forward, after you've had communication with them, maybe you could provide a report.
Any other questions, concerns? No? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Mayor, please return.
The next motion of the evening is by Mr. Gignac, requests that the superintendent develop and distribute an organizational health survey to all staff and parents throughout the district, seconded by Ms. Martin. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I'm looking for are two different surveys, one to be distributed to all staff, building by building, and then a survey to parents, building by building. I'm hoping that the survey will include focus on leadership, teaching and learning, discipline, facility, safety and security, and whatever other areas that might be interesting to look into. I'm just looking to get a feel on, not really a satisfaction survey, but to get a feel on how each individual building as an organization is functioning, and how parents feel, how staff feel in that environment. And then to take a look at the entire district as a whole, I think is a good practice to really get a feel on how our staff and our constituents are feeling within our organization.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through you to the superintendent. First of all, before I ask my question, I think it's an excellent idea. I think it speaks to the whole part of the culture in our schools and educating the whole student that we've been talking about, that the superintendent's vision and strategic plan include as one of the ways we really measure what we're doing. But my question to you, Superintendent, is are we currently doing any surveying? Because I know years ago we used to survey our families? We are. So, because my thinking is I want some thought to go into the questions, how it's going to be distributed, how it's going to be collected. Because keep in mind, if you're a parent and you're asking to comment on your thoughts about the teaching or the leadership at your child's school, and if it just goes back in your child's backpack to the teachers, that might be, it might repress some answers. So I think that I'd like to hear first if we are doing something, what we're doing, but also as we move forward in implementing Mr. Gignac's motion, to really give some thought about those aspects, not just the questions, but the whole collection piece, so.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? We do have a registered speaker. Mr. Superintendent, would you like the registered speaker is Mr. Tim Blake. Do you want to? It's a good time. It's a good time.
Well, thank you for having me, Tim Blake, 40 now, part of the school site. I wanted to speak tonight just on the motion brought forth by Mr. Gignac. I can speak to it in a couple different ways. In some ways, I feel like I might be answering your question, just I've had some experience, even though it's outside of Lowell. But in terms of organizational health, the previous meeting of the Sullivan Site Council, we sat down and basically drafted a survey. I'd be happy to share it with you guys. It's here. You can look at it as I'm going to keep one copy. So basically, part of our site council goals, going over the academic goals, one of the things that we talked about is it's often can get some more parent involvement if you have a parent goal. And before we set a parent goal, we really should reach out and try to get some feedback from families. I don't want to make this about me, but I'm going to share a little bit of my experience. I'm a middle school principal. I work in Leominster. Leominster is a gateway city. We struggle sometimes with getting parent feedback as well, so we can form good goals. Our site council in my school, which is very, very similar to what you see there. Doing it through Google and sending it home in an email to get parent feedback, we were much more successful than we had been in 5 or 6 years. We got tons of involvement, tons of feedback, things that we haven't thought about. It was really fantastic. Usually on a site council, I'll at least speak for me and not for any other principal, we're usually begging for people to be on a site council, and I actually had to turn people away, which seemed kind of odd. But we had a lot of people who wanted to be on the site council and want to be a part of it. So basically the questions that we came up with, they just parents had to say what grade their kid was in, and then they had the option to answer as many prompts as they want. It was talking about the school's disciplinary policies, if they feel their kid is safe, academic expectations for students fair and reasonable, is their family's culture respected by the school. This is a little bit school specific, but I'm sure there's values that Lowell public schools could have or schools have. For our school was respect, responsibility, and creativity. So we asked families if they felt those were vibrant and part of their kids' educational experience. Does the school operate efficiently and effectively? And then we left one question at the end, which is kind of are you interested in talking more about this? So it's something I wanted to share with you because we had great success. And I think in terms of, for the different schools, if you want to set parent goals, it's not that the school district doesn't do probably enough surveying, but I think in just kind of the age and times we live in, if you get an email and you can click on it and you're going to get a lot more feedback than you are probably chasing paper and kids.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Go ahead.
I just wanted to further emphasize what Ms. Doherty was saying with regard to this being a fantastic idea, but I did have just a few points I wanted to address. I think that if we are going to do a survey, it would be in the district's best interest to include a portion about school climate. With regard to as we know, the culture of our country is sort of beginning to shift, and we just want to ensure that the culture of our schools continues to improve and go forward and not the other way. I think it would also maybe be beneficial to include a portion of the survey that addresses how comfortable parents are when they have to contact their parents' school officials, whether that be teachers or administrators, whether they feel that they have the tools to with regard to translators, or if they feel comfortable, because I know at the high school there have been a few conflicts with regard to different boundaries being set by culture. And I think if the questions we were going to do with the schools were a bit, well, I'll first say if they are to remain open-ended, it would be It's imperative that the surveys are translated and available in several different languages because we know that a large portion of students at Lowell Public Schools have come from families where at home they only speak one language and that language is in English. And so to ensure that the student doesn't have to do the translating for the parent on the survey would be fantastic. And I think that if it is going to be available online, that would be great because we're increasing accessibility in one way, but we're also limiting accessibility in another way. And so I don't know if we could maybe get creative with the distribution of surveys being available not only online, but also at places we know families frequent, for example, the grocery store or different places like that where we know parents are going to be throughout the week and consistently. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We will give you a thorough report, but I just wanted to brief everyone first on what we're doing. First of all, it's great to see that everybody is in favor of something like that because this is something that we're already started doing. As I had mentioned earlier, last meeting, that Lowell belongs to two activities that we're part of. One is the Massachusetts Consortium for Innovative Educational Assessments, which is a group of 6 districts that was authorized by the legislator to develop a new accountability system. And our part, the membership of each district is represented by the superintendent and the president of the union to make sure that we have labor is in line. And it was just launched this week on Monday, formally at the State House. And we're doing this work. We've commissioned, the group had commissioned a Holy Cross-based research team that has already been dispatching their researchers in all 6 districts. So we have already started, and they've already come in and talk. They're developing the focus groups. They'll be going out talking to parents focus groups, student focus groups, and there would be a great opportunity at that time for the students to repeat some of the suggestions that you have. And make sure that they hear them so they can account for that. Parallel to that, we also are working with the Hanover Research, which is a research consulting group that was the previous school committee had appropriated some funds for that as part of the accountability reorganization, which is helping us is developing these surveys. And they will be including parent surveys. They will be including teachers and staff surveys, student surveys, and then we'll be reporting on all of that. The end goal of that is to include those in a new proposed accountability system to the state. So that's why we're doing it as a consortium. So it's not just us doing it. It's and the state is aware of it and is part of our efforts in developing something like that. So, and it's also part of the new act, ESSA Act, which emphasizes local accountability. And and the second, on a parallel track, as we're doing this in the statewide, Lowell and Somerville are working with the state to work with the federal government. And I just received today the next time we're meeting is going to be on March 7th, where we're meeting again with the feds to try to seek a waiver for the state so that we can do this kind of thing separately from what, just the MCAS or things like that. So, but we will be coming back to you with a thorough report on that. I just thought I'd give you an update of what we're already doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any further discussion? Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick comment. I think the success of your survey was the brevity of it. I think just minimizing the number of questions, because you'll get a parent who'll look at that and say, oh, there's 25 questions. I don't have time to do this. Whereas, keep it under 15, I think that added to your success as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next motion of the evening is by Mr. Hoey. Request that the superintendent send a letter of appreciation to Coach George Bossy on behalf of the Lowell Public Schools and the Lowell School Committee in recognition of Coach Bossy's holiday wrestling tournament held at the Paul Songus Arena annually and known to bring large crowds to the city. Seconded by Mr. Gignac. Okay, Mr. Hoey.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Everybody knows George Bossy. I think he has about a half a century in the Lowell school system. I had him back in 1969 as an offensive line coach. This gentleman wore a lot of different hats. He was an offensive line coach, like I said, in 69. I met him. I think I would have done a little bit better with Al Pear, but that's another story. And he also was our AD, and his claim to fame has to be wrestling. He's done so many great things, and this year, I think, is just something we should say to him, thank you for all you do. So thank you very much, and I have another quick motion that will be about Bossy a little bit too, so thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion by Mr. Hoey is request that the superintendent send a letter of congratulations to Coach Tom Cassidy on behalf of the Lowell Public Schools and the Lowell School Committee on the Greater Lowell Technical High School Griffins wrestling team's recent win over Lowell High School. Second by Mr. Hoey.
Thanks again. Coach Tom Cassidy out there at the Greater Lowell Technical High School, he's a 1986 graduate of Lowell High. He's one of Judge Bossy's former pupil and wrestler himself. And this is what happens to George if you hang around for 50. Some of your students will come back to beat you. This is the first time the Greater Lowell Technical High School with Mike Kunzler, Harrington, and all of them, no one could ever beat Lowell High School. And they finally beat us. It took Tom Cassidy 20 years. I followed his team quite a bit. He has a great team now that's wrestling in Division I. All the time he's up against Lowell High, he's up against Chelmsford, he's up against all your tough schools in wrestling. And I just think it's one of the biggest things I've seen in sports in a long time. So I just want to give him a pat on the back and nice job, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoey. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, all opposed, so voted. The next motion is by Mr. Dakota to have the superintendent work with the Lowell High School administration to look into adding the International Bachelorette Program to offer our advanced high school students another opportunity in addition to the AP coursework. Second by Ms. Doherty. Mr. Dakota.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's an adjunct that we could possibly look into adding to what we currently offer our level kids. I think the more we offer to them, the better. I just think we just look into it and see if it's available and if it's something that we can use, incorporate into what we currently have at the high school. I think anything that we can do to improve that is a plus.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
All right, thank you, Ronna. I just noticed in this document that it talks about that IB can be the curricula for a handful of classes, but it's also offered at the elementary and middle school levels. So I'm wondering if you want to give us a report about whether we could actually do, I mean, were you thinking just for the high school, or?
Well, that was my original, but we can add the lower levels
I
because they
love
do
this
offer it for
idea.
that.
I love it. The superintendent is going to respond.
Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the IB program is the real IB the real IB diploma is an 11th, 12th grade. That's when they get the diploma for the 11th, 12th grade work. And it involves 5 subjects, and they can do each subject on their own, or they can do the entire diploma. The advantage of that is that over the AP is because it's a 2-year program, and they get the performances on the 2-year program, so they get 6 credit waived in college for any grade of 6 or 7 on the scale of 7. And it's a fantastic program, and it has, you're right, it did go down in preparatory programs. So you have now preparatory programs for IB all the way down to K, believe it or not. They go all the way from K through 10 in preparing for that 11, 12. So there are districts already that have IB middle schools and IB elementary schools. I think most start obviously with the 11, 12, how to incorporate that quickly. We have the advantage of having a very strong curriculum in the Lyceum, so I can tell you already, having looked at both curriculum, they're already prepared, they're already there. So we should have very little work to do. It's a very rigorous program, and then we could incorporate that down every year a grade or 2 to make it to have a whole K through 10 preparation for that.
Ms. Doherty.
Just a quick follow-up on that. So basically, the motion is to look into doing it, right? We're not saying we're going to absolutely do it, because I guess I'd be interested in knowing more about what's involved. For instance, I know with AP, our AP teachers have to get certification to teach AP classes, and there is a cost involved in that. So I'd be interested in looking at those parameters if it's involved in this. But I love the idea of another kind of program or offering for our high-achieving students, that they could go further.
We will have to do a thorough feasibility study on that and present it before we go any further.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. Who distributed this summary tonight? It was on our desks. Mr. Dakota? Okay. I was just curious because my last page is actually an email that was probably from Mr. Frisch regarding student activities account internal review. So I'll hand that over to you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Not all in favor of the motion, all opposed, so voted. Next, we have, under subcommittees, we have the Finance Subcommittee. Mr. Gignac.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just last week, the Finance Subcommittee met. Those present were myself, Ms. Doherty, and Mr. Gendron, along with Mr. Dakota, Mr. Hoey, and Ms. Martin, and the leadership of the Lowell Public Schools. At this meeting, we discussed 2 agenda items, the special education costs and a review of the year-to-date budget. So at this time, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I take out of order the item number 9.3, Sped Reserve Fund, which was the main discussion of this meeting. Mr. Frisch provided the subcommittee with new legislation regarding the ability for a school committee and city council to establish a special education reserve fund. And I won't go into the details, but this will allow us to carry over unspent special education monies or any monies to put into a reserve to tap into for special education costs that, as we know, continue to rise year after year. Before I move on to the other agenda items, I'd like to make a motion that the Lowell School Committee establish a SPED reserve fund, which will then have to go to the City Council to approve as well.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Discussion on the motion? Ms. Martin?
I'm certainly planning to support the motion. I just had one fine point I was curious about. When we were having discussions during the subcommittee, we discussed how, as you had mentioned, monies from any source, Chapter 70, local funds, anything, could be put in this specific fund, correct? So once it goes into this fund, are we then required to only spend it on, is it special ed? Can we spend it on special ed internal costs, or is it only for out-district placement? Because my understanding is that what we can retain now, that 1 year of circuit breaker that we can hold on to, that has to be spent on external, resources. We couldn't use that to start our own program, but that we would have that flexibility with this new fund.
Yes.
I love a short answer. That's excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call on the motion?
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Mr. Gignac?
Thank you. The second agenda item was a review of the year-to-date budget report, where Mr. Frisch and Mr. Cassidy discussed some of the outstanding transfers that have been appearing on our budget reports monthly, and gave us an overview of why there were negative balances, and has assured us that those with negative balances transfers have been made. The meeting minutes reflect correctly that there was a motion made to transfer $4,000 from a specific account to another, but after further review, that motion doesn't need to be brought forward. The actual report that night had some misinformation that was later corrected, so that motion doesn't need to be made forward. So I'll just at this time make a motion to accept the report as report of progress.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the report as report of progress, place it on file, seconded by Mr. Dakota. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, all opposed, so voted. Next, we've already done item 7.2, so we'll skip over to reports of the superintendent. And the first one is the online community resource guide.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask Deputy Durkin to walk us through this report.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'm pleased to announce tonight that for the first time, the Lowell Public Schools has an online resource guide. This guide at present is live on our website, and I'll show you that really quickly just so that the folks that are watching know how to access it as well. We also will be training our social workers. We've been working with our social workers, guidance counselors to determine the services that most frequently our families, our students are accessing and need. So this is not intended to be an all-encompassing resource guide for the city of Lowell. However, we do, on the website, we offer people an opportunity to report back to our office and provide us with some information if they want to add something to it. Before I show it to you really quickly, I just want to acknowledge this is a collaborative effort of our dropout prevention team and our elementary grant counseling teams. They worked diligently because they felt that when they were looking for services to provide our youth, it was really difficult to easily access them. So specifically, Supervisor of Attendance Heather Ganley, District Support Specialist Nancy Crones, Attendance Officer Rosa Segura Morales, and District Social Worker Ingrid Markman, along with our webmaster John Overton, did some tremendous amount of hours to get this operated. So I'll just show it to you very quickly. So it lives directly on our website, and we just passed it, so I will click and go back to it for you. And so someone can just access it by clicking the Read More. And then on that, you'll see all of the list, and those are links. Each of those are a link to a different resource that families can access and students can access. So if I went on to one of the links, what you would find, so here is a link for Alternative House. Now that's going to direct us right to the agency's website. And then also if there are links to referral services and also services provided, those are offered too as well. So I can show you how that would happen. And so then the family can get right on to the services. If there are special numbers or hotlines, we've added that as well. And we hope that this will be able to be maintained. Our goal is to update it quarterly through the efforts of our dropout prevention and attendance teams. And we're going to be adding some early childhood links, some additional after-school links, but we didn't want to wait to have everything there. So next week it'll be pushed out to all of our school websites, and we'll let families know where they can access it.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion on this item? Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. I just want to say this is a fantastic idea. I think it's going to be a great resource for our families. And I'm assuming things like Girls Inc., Boys and Girls Club, the Y, those are all going to be, that's in, I didn't see it on.
Sorry. That is just what I provided you in the report, and I shared this with another counselor. I probably wasn't really clear, but in the report that I gave you was just a sample. That is one link. So if I go back to, well, I'm not going to be able to go back, but if I went back to the home page, clicked on the home page, I would get into specific areas. So adult and youth education programs, mental health and health services. When I click on the mental health and health services, I'm going to have multiple pages to scroll down into. It's just not the 3 you see there.
Then you should definitely add that tutoring program that the mayor's talking about. Make sure that's on there too.
I already made a note of it.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Ms. Ominieni, how's that?
Omoyedi.
Okay.
We're close.
Yeah.
I just wanted to further emphasize Ms. Doherty's point. I think that this will have a tremendous impact on students and provide them that support and it really provides students with a tool for them to become advocates for themselves when we know that we don't have the resources for all staff members to be that for students. I just had a question. I was wondering if it would be possible or if it's already included for teachers and administration to have their contact info also available on the websites. I know that each individual school has some information available, but I did some research and it's primarily just the email of the principal or the head of school, and so I was wondering if that would be something that could be added.
So at present, this is just to provide our students and families with access to community resources that they can't, necessarily navigate very easily. But we certainly can look into that. But on schools' websites, that would probably be housed on the school website more than on this particular document.
Are you all set? Okay, that's okay. Any further discussion? Okay, the next item is the Chapter 70 State Aid report from the superintendent. Mr. Superintendent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take this one if you don't mind. Mr. Freshy, I have too many items already covered. We did get the numbers from the state on Chapter 70. The good news is that's the governor's numbers. Obviously, they're not final yet. The total budget is set to increase by about $6,107,000. That's roughly a 3.3% increase. The $6 million increase is made up of two parts, roughly 80%, a little bit better, which is $4.9 million that comes directly from the state, and the other part of about roughly 19.25% is about $1.1 million is the part that's what the state orders the city to add to their contribution. That would increase the share of the city roughly over $40 million, which is the 19.25% of the $189 million total budget. As any town and cities, this is not specific to Lowell, that contribution is always cash and non-cash contribution. And we did get, here it says, in the memo we sent you, that usually we get a final information from the city manager's office on what would be the actual cash contribution and the non-cash, because we care about the cash contribution because that's going to be the one that's available to us to help in the budget. We just got literally hours ago, around I think midday, we got a letter from him informing us of what that would be. It is estimated now, in their estimation, that the actual non-cash contribution will actually increase. And instead of getting a 1.1 million increase from the city, we're actually going to have a decrease of roughly in cash contribution of about $1 million. We're going to be looking at that. We haven't responded yet. We're going to be looking at the details, and we're going to look at all the indirect costs, which are also known in the city as the maintenance, part of the maintenance of efforts agreement. And we'll look at revising on all these numbers. Other costs within the indirect costs are your charter school costs, or your tuition, out of district tuitions and so forth. So we're looking at reviewing all of those and seeing how we can understand that. But as it is now, if that were to hold true, the budget increase would be about, to us, when you net out what we will be decreasing from the city side, will be about 3.8 or so over the between FY17 and FY18. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any further discussion on this item? If not, Ms. Doherty.
I just have a question. If I understood you correctly, the Chapter 70 formula is saying that we should get an additional $1 million from the city for next year, but...
In total contribution between cash and non-cash.
Right. So the city manager's number that you got today was actually $1 million less?
Because they had additional non-cash. The cost of charter has gone up drastically. It's gone up over $1.8 million. that the city has to pay, and that's part of the educational funds.
Right.
So that
It's the
increases.
in-kind spending piece.
Yeah, that increases the in-kind.
So then my other question is that money, and I know it's not definite because the legislature hasn't voted on
No,
it, but,
yeah.
but the governor's estimated amount in terms of the state's contribution to about 80% of our costs. Is any of that money tied to the federal government, that 80%? Because that could change, couldn't it?
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's not federal funds, it's all state money.
It's all state money?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any further discussion, Ms. Martin?
But the federal implications around Title I and other direct federal funding to the district could be dramatically impacted. But the state funding is discrete from the state house.
If I may add, Mr. Mayor, if you recall, and we will see it again during the budget season, you see that the actual budget of Lowell has a part of it, substantial part of it, that is grants. Lots of those grants are federal grants, and we have no idea what would come out of at the end of it. So they might, as Ms. Martin said, we might have some very serious changes coming up.
I wonder if I could just follow up with that. So if 80% of the budget is state, what percentage is tied to Title I and grants that's federal? Do we know?
This 80% and 20% between city and state, that is only for the Chapter 70.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't include at all the grants. The grants are in addition to this.
Right. So what percentage does it represent in our overall budget then? How much are we depending on federal money?
When I present the budget, and even before I present the budget, it's a little loud, I'm going to show the total revenues for the school system, both state money, local money, and federal money. So at that time, I'll be able to answer your question very concise and clearly. It's a good question.
But it is a substantial amount. It's
Just wonder how much I need to worry.
Yeah, it is. It is a substantial amount.
It is, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the proposed 2018 budget calendar. Any discussion on the proposed budget calendar? Mr. Gignac?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few suggestions to consider. After Ms. Doherty's recommendation, I recommend that we change the first budget meeting or the presentation to Wednesday, April 12th. My next recommendation is that we keep the April 26th meeting, but traditionally our second meeting is a finance subcommittee meeting, so if we could change that to finance subcommittee meeting. Location and time are fine. And then for our first full budget meeting with the full committee, I suggest that we change that from a Tuesday to a Wednesday so the mayor may be present. And I prefer that the actual budget hearing and the budget adoption would be here at City Hall, so it's a live meeting.
Okay, so Mr. Gignac is proposing 4 changes. The date change on the first meeting to the 12th. A change from the school committee to the finance committee for the April 26th meeting. A change date on the third meeting to May 3rd. And a venue change on the fourth meeting to here in the council chamber. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, do we have a second to the motion by Ms. Doherty? Discussion on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? So voted. Is there any other discussion regarding the budget calendar?
I just wanted to make one other suggestion that I think it's important for the committee to have the budget before we have the public meeting. And I was wondering if Mr. Frisch would be comfortable with having us get it by April 7th, which is the Friday before the 12th. That gives us the weekend and some time to look at it, prepare questions. Typically, we want to have some time to look at it before it's presented publicly. So that would be just moving that up a few days.
The answer is yes, that'd be fine.
Thank you.
Short answers tonight.
Any further discussion? If not, Chair would entertain a motion to accept the reports of the superintendent as reports of progress and place them on file. The motion to that effect by Mr. Hoey, seconded by Mr. Dakota. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. Moving on to new business. The first is a budget transfer in the amount of $500 from Choral Supplies to printing and binding. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion approved by Mr. Dakota, seconded by Ms. Doherty. Discussion on the motion, roll call.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron?
Yes.
Mr. Gignac? Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
The next item on the new business, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just realizing that it's this request says from Choral Supplies to printing and binding.
Yes.
Isn't the request to establish Choral Supply? So don't you want the money to come from printing and binding? Okay. You want it to go there? To Choral from printing and binding?
Yes.
Okay. See, that's why I'm here.
Okay, so let's just forget about that motion. All right, so the motion by Mr. Gignac is to transfer the amount of $500 from printing and binding to Choral Supplies.
Yes.
Seconded by Mr. Dakota, I'm sure. Discussion on the motion, roll call.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
6 yea, 1 absent, approved.
Next, the next new business is the disposal of surplus supplies. Do we have a motion to approve by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Dakota. Discussion, roll call. I'm sorry, Ms. Doherty.
I just wanted to ask, I completely support, trying to see if anybody wants these books and then using our recycling system. Just want to make sure that we're running it by Adult Ed, the International Institute, any other community groups that may have use of these textbooks before we recycle them. That's just all I want to make about that.
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
Okay, item 9.3 was dealt with earlier in the evening, so we'll go to convention conferences and requests. We have 6 convention conferences and requests. We have motion to bundle and approve all 6 by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Mr. Dakota. Discussion, roll call.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Dakota?
Yes.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Mr. Gendron? Mr. Gignac?
Yes.
Mr. Hoey?
Yes.
6 yeas, 1 absent, approved.
And moving on to communications, we have a letter of appreciation to William Haddad, the Executive Director of On the Move. Chair will entertain a motion to accept it and place on file by Mr. Hoey, seconded by Mr. Gignac. Discussion, all in favor, all opposed, so voted. That concludes the agenda. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Okay, there we go. I would move to adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Gignac. All in favor, all opposed? Stand adjourned.
That went better than I thought tonight.
It's a motion to adjourn. We don't need a roll.